Darkest Hour is directed by Joe Wright and stars Gary Oldman, Lily James, Kristen Scott Thomas, and Ben Mendelsohn. Winston Churchill, played by Gary Oldman, has been chosen as the new Prime Minister of Great Britain following the resignation of Neville Chamberlain just 1 year into World War II. The country is facing imminent invasion from the Nazi forces, and Churchill must navigate sacrificial decisions and rival politicians in order to protect the British people and stop the incoming evil that is landing upon Dunkirk. The subject of World War II and even the actual evacuation of Dunkirk is something that director Joe Wright has tackled in his film Atonement before. And here in Darkest Hour, Joe Wright goes back to that and explores more of the political side that led up to that event, but with less of a human focus. I think that Darkest Hour for me really did feel like a Lincoln-style biopic, where we have this historic figure who's mainly just having conversation after conversation with people. The biggest thing about both movies is the performance, the lead performance of that historic figure. Here, it's Gary Oldman, and he is fantastic. The way that he embodies Churchill, the way that he replicates his speech, his mannerisms, his psychology, he really is just getting so deep into that role. And it's a triumph because he's triumphing over all those heavy prosthetics and makeup that's on him. He's making sure that the performance can still work. Joe Wright knows that this movie is not going to be the most exciting thing out there, so he uses Bruno Debenel as cinematographer to really pump this movie up visually. There are so many shots. I think nearly every frame of this movie is packed to the brim with just visual magnificence. Every shot that could just be a normal 1-2 shot still has beautiful colors and wonderful angles and these incredible movements of the camera and the positions of actors, the blocking, the way that it passes through walls. There's so many shots which look fantastic. However, I do have a bit of a problem with using such flashy, incredible cinematography for a rather boring movie because it feels like style over substance. It is kind of obvious to me that Joe Wright wanted to use such big visual cues for scenes that have nothing really incredibly exciting going on in them. Great cinematography is meant to get you to feel a certain way, but we have shots of Churchill isolated in darkness, but the scene itself really doesn't lend it to that. Or we'll have a very darkly lit scene in something that's also meant to be kind of funny. So there is this kind of disconnect between what the camera's doing and what the movie wants to tell. I think that's the biggest problem with Darkest Hour, is that the script is just not really that interesting. We have a very conventional narrative. You know that it's just going to end with some big rousing speech from Churchill, unites the British people together, they go out and do the thing that they need to do. Okay, and there's nothing else. Like I said, it's just conversation after conversation, and it gets very repetitive. It also kind of feels counterintuitive because we want to see something that can really engage us. We only get little glimpses of Churchill's relationships with King George VI, played by Ben Mendelsohn, his secretary Elizabeth, played by Lily James, and his wife Clementine, played by Kristen Scott Thomas. But those relationships never really pay off. I think the biggest sin is putting a solid actress like Kristen Scott Thomas in an incredibly underwritten role. I felt a little bored in Darkest Hour. It's a good lead-in to Christopher Nolan's film Dunkirk, if you want to know a bit of the backstory behind that event. I was there really for Gary Oldman's performance. He gave me some of the movie's best scenes. This is, for me, his best performance I think I've ever seen him in. He deserves all the praise, and I'd have to say that Darkest Hour is a movie that is worth your ticket and the DVD. So Darkest Hour, have you seen it? Please tell me what you think about it in the comments below. There are going to be videos linked down here or one over there. For more Mr. Movies, please press my little face right there. Thanks for watching.